Crouched in the shadows, our main character watches a pack of vicious goblins hydrating at a stream. But instead of charging in with drawn steel or blazing fists, he triggers his unique skill. A holographic inventory window shatters the air, and he pulls out a mysterious capture sphere, ready to summon his very own subjugated monster. With a dramatic wind-up, he hurls the artifact. But reality hits hard. The sphere pitifully bounces off the dirt, landing several feet short of its target. Total awkward silence. The epic ambush completely fizzles out, leaving both the bewildered monsters and our stunned hero staring in pure disbelief. Bloodlust ignites in the goblin's eyes. They swarm him with murderous intent. Forced into a brutal fistfight, it immediately becomes crystal clear that our guy is completely outmatched and moments away from a gruesome death. But fate has not abandoned him just yet. The system glitches, and the delayed summoning sequence finally activates. An imposing shadow bursts from the sphere, blocking a lethal strike at the exact perfect millisecond. Against this loyal beast, the wild horde is utterly defenseless. His summoned warrior unleashes absolute carnage, painting the forest floor crimson. As the dust settles, a brilliant level-up aura erupts around the loyal monster, skyrocketing its combat stats. However, this lone warrior is merely chapter 1 of his legendary journey. An entire army of mythical summons waits in the shadows, but unlocking their power requires a mountain of monster corpses. And honestly, he is completely fine with that. After all, dominating the food chain by using beasts to slaughter other beasts is the ultimate power trip. Yet, to understand this insane evolution, we need to rewind the clock. Back then, society branded him as complete trash, a defect with zero chance of surviving the dungeons. It was graduation day, an event meant to be the glorious peak of any cadet's life. Inside the grand Aegis Vanguard Coliseum, Zane steps onto the brightly lit stage. He extends trembling hands to accept his hard-earned combat license, officially clearing the academy as a Class E Vanguard. Fire burns in this young man's eyes. He had dragged himself through hell and back just to stand on this platform. You see, his monocore awakened at the absolute bottom of the food chain. The system literally spawned him into life on nightmare difficulty. While blessed geniuses coasted on raw talent, Zane practically bled over his textbooks, grinding double the hours just to artificially close the massive gap in his power levels. But there was a silver lining to his suffering. That relentless academic grind forged him into an absolute encyclopedia of dungeon mechanics and monster weaknesses. In terms of pure tactical theory, he stood alone at the summit, completely eclipsing the so-called elite prodigies. Standing under the spotlight, his heart swells with unimaginable pride. The endless nights of misery had finally paid off, and he was about to become a sanctioned warrior. But reality is a cruel master. The dead-eyed bureaucrat handing out the credentials shatters his dream in a heartbeat. With a sickening rip, the arrogant official tears Zane's combat license right down the middle, publicly declaring that a Class E trash tier has absolutely no place in the field. Our protagonist might have cleared the curriculum, but his laughable aura capacity meant no guild would ever let him step foot inside a real raid. His god-tier strategic mind and encyclopedia-level knowledge? Completely, utterly useless in a world that only bows to brute force and high rankings. It was a devastating wake-up call. Every drop of blood and sweat had amounted to nothing. With his spirit entirely crushed, Zane buried his lifelong dream of conquering the abyss. Seeking an escape from the bitter pain, he locked himself in his room and turned to virtual reality. Yet, even after 7 long years of isolation, the phantom itch of the battlefield refused to fade. Society had discarded him as a total failure. Wandering through his 20s without a compass, he had no clue how to actually survive in the real world. Stripped of his true calling, his only remaining survival tactic was grinding digital leaderboards as a full-time professional gamer. His absolute obsession became an underground title known as Beasts Clash Beasts, or BCB for short. The core concept was brutally simple. You dominate waves of enemies by commanding your own tamed horrors. Players navigate a massive web of ancient species, capturing and evolving units to hold the line against apocalyptic swarms in the most unforgiving tower defense simulator ever created. To the uninitiated, placing units on a map sounds like child's play. But veteran players know the system is incredibly sadistic. If you have ever raged over the impossible scaling of games like Titan Siege Defense 5, you already understand the psychological torture involved. Surviving a single wave demands god-level spatial awareness and flawless tactical placement, forcing players to squeeze every single drop of potential out of their minions. Sure, the system lets you evolve your team, but the experience grind is so incredibly punishing that it takes months just to reach the next tier. And if you actually endure the hellish grind to awaken your core units, A single tactical error erases everything. Permadeath is the law of the land here. When a loyal beast falls in combat, its data is completely wiped from existence. These ruthless stakes keep the adrenaline pumping like crazy. But that massive difficulty spike also triggered waves of internet rage, branding the project as a historically impossible trash game. The mechanics are wild. If your brain is sharp enough, you can absolutely slaughter a massive 3-star behemoth using nothing but a fragile 1-star gremlin. Yet, while casuals cried and rage quit, our brilliant tactician found his sanctuary in the madness. Zane managed to carve out a solid income streaming his gameplay. His genius-level tactical mind turned nightmare stages into an absolute masterclass of domination. This unmatched dominance crowned him as the undisputed king of the BCB community, a living legend among hardcore strategists. The virtual battlefield was the only thing keeping him breathing after his real-world combat dreams shattered. But sadly, his reign is crashing to an end, because today is his final broadcast. The developers pulled the plug, and the servers are going dark permanently. Trolls in the chat are already spamming toxic comments, while his hardcore fans nervously speculate about his next career move. His viewers genuinely believe he is an active vanguard in real life, assuming this server shutdown is just a minor bump in his glamorous warrior lifestyle. But the soul-crushing truth is that he is nothing more than an unemployed reject. The secret gnaws at his pride, forcing him to hide his pathetic reality behind a smiling avatar. Pushing aside his lingering doubts, Jace resolves to go completely all out. Since the game servers are shutting down tonight, he might as well enjoy the explosive finale. A brutal special event called the Cataclysm is currently live, and the mission is brutally simple. Defend the stronghold at all costs, and hold the line against an endless tide of demonic beasts surging from the abyssal rift. As a seasoned veteran, Jace is tackling the 700th tier, a stage universally feared as the impossible zone. No player in history has ever survived this far, making his heart pound with a mix of dread and absolute thrill. The moment he initiates the sequence, a catastrophic swarm of shadows erupts from the void gate. The sheer volume of the monster horde is suffocating as they stampede toward the walls. He immediately deploys his level 100 Phantom Ranger, hoping to cull the front line. But against this tsunami of absolute nightmare, his elite unit is instantly annihilated. It is a crushing blow right out of the gate, yet Jace refuses to back down. Next up to the vanguard is his level 130 Demon Empress. But fate is terribly cruel, and she is swiftly devoured by a colossal 3-headed hellhound. One after another, his top-tier champions fall like dominoes. In mere minutes, his defensive line is wiped completely off the map. Total defeat feels absolutely inevitable. But then, the system triggers a jaw-dropping twist. Reaching the 700th tier for the very first time unlocks a hidden sequence. A legendary entity known as the Grand Overlord officially awakens to join the fray. This mythic knight steps forward, radiating pure celestial energy with flowing silver hair and an aura that defies logic. Jace stares at the monitor in absolute disbelief. In this game, overlords are supposed to be mere background decorations. They absolutely do not engage in combat. Yet, as the hellish tide crashes toward the fortress, this majestic guardian stands tall atop the ramparts, radiating an aura of absolute calm. Drawing a massive blade, the Overlord unleashes a strike of terrifying elegance. A massive arc of holy energy obliterates the vanguard, slicing through the demonic beasts like cheap paper. It is an absolute massacre of breathtaking proportions. Jace has dumped thousands of hours into this server, but this overwhelming display of supreme power leaves him speechless. The monstrous legion surges once more. The knight launches into the sky, raining down an apocalyptic barrage of starlight that instantly vaporizes the enemy forces. The slaughter continues without a single moment of mercy. Soon, the once terrifying horde is reduced to mountains of pixelated ash. Jace almost drops his jaw to the floor. The impossible 700th tier has just been officially cleared. Throughout his entire run as a top streamer, he was absolutely convinced that overlords were nothing but fancy, cosmetic trophies. But this changes everything. This celestial guardian is a walking, breathing cheat code. However, the thrill of victory quickly fades. His broadcast software had crashed mid-battle, leaving a grand total of one lonely viewer in the chat. Out of nowhere, this unknown user begins typing deeply emotional messages, praising Jace for his dedication in saving their realm. The stranger types with sheer desperation and joy. They claim that thanks to his actions, their people can finally know peace now that their true monarch has been awakened. Jace physically scratches his head. What kind of insane roleplay is this guy even talking about? But the joke suddenly becomes a living nightmare. A spatial tear violently rips open inside his actual bedroom, and a glowing blue system interface flashes before his eyes, announcing the acquisition of a brand new skill. The word skill sends a jolt through his brain. He vividly remembers the lectures from the Hunter Academy. The instructors always said that bottom-tier copper ranks were basically cannon fodder in the dungeons. But extremely rarely, a chosen few could manifest a second ability. This miraculous evolution defies all logic, and the Hunter world knows it as a second awakening. Destiny has just handed him the ultimate reset button. Jace clenches his fists, his blood boiling with the fiery ambition to conquer the monster-infested world once more. He eagerly pulls up his primary stat panel, but his excitement instantly flatlines. Nothing has changed at all! Frustration begins to set in, until a secondary golden prompt chimes in the air. It finally unlocks the hidden parameters of his newfound power. The system presents a massive branching choice. Option 1, forge a pact with the Overlord, or Option 2, commune with the Overlord. Since the vague descriptions offer zero actual guidance, he decides to just wing it and select one at random. He chooses the pact option without hesitation, but an aggressively loud error sound rings out and a bloody red warning flashes, stating he lacks the mandatory gold to initiate the sequence. Jace groans, violently dragging a hand down his face in pure defeat. The universe dangles greatness right in front of him, only to brutally snatch it away. But as his dual monitors flicker in the dark, a desperate plan forms in his mind. He pivots his chair back to the computer. It is time to squeeze some truth out of that delusional chatter from earlier. The exact second he refreshes the broadcasting software, the phantom user instantly reconnects. Let us officially refer to this enigmatic shadow as User 0. Jace swiftly throws up a private password block, turning the public channel into a completely isolated interrogation room. He immediately starts hammering the keyboard, demanding the heavy answers he needs to survive. The timing of his evolution was too perfect, meaning this stranger definitely holds the key to the system. Skipping the polite introductions entirely, Jace bluntly demands if User 0 engineered his miraculous second awakening. To his absolute shock, the mysterious text types back a solid confirmation. Jace feels a chill crawl down his spine. Gaining abilities was supposed to be the strict domain of the gods. Just what kind of terrifying cosmic entity is sitting on the other side of his chat screen? Kale immediately demands answers. Why did this miraculous phenomenon happen to him? Seriously, why would a mysterious cosmic entity step in, just to give a burnt-out gamer a second chance at life? The enigmatic presence gives a chillingly simple reply. The monarch has chosen him, and that is the absolute truth. As for the reason behind this tremendous blessing, it is simply because Kyle was the spark that brought their sleeping monarch back into this world. The voice echoes with eerie calmness, assuring him that the storm of confusion in his mind will fade as time goes on. As for these mind-blowing new abilities, Kale should accept them as a grand reward for his unintentional service. Realizing questions will get him nowhere, Kyle shifts his entire focus. It is time to test out this insane power. The ability called Communion with the Monarch is locked behind a cooldown timer. He will have to wait for that one. He brushes that off, but his blood boils at the second skill. Why in the world is it blocked by a ridiculous paywall? Realizing its careless mistake, the unseen entity quickly fixes the glitch. Instantly, 50 gold coins are wired straight into Kale's digital wallet. Now armed with the necessary funds, Kale can dive deep into his new arsenal. It is time to unravel the secrets of this system, one piece at a time. Having delivered the message, the cosmic guide bids its final farewell and completely vanishes from his mind. Kale stands there, completely shell-shocked. He pinches his arm hard, praying this is not just some cruel, hyper-realistic illusion. But the pain is real. This epic reawakening is no mere coincidence. This almighty being known as the Monarch is pulling the strings. Suddenly, a crisp ping echoes in his head. 50 gold has been successfully deposited. With cash in hand, he wastes no time. He triggers his ultimate skill. Bargain with the Monarch. Flash! A colossal holographic marketplace erupts before his eyes. It is packed with a jaw-dropping roster of terrifying beasts, all up for sale. Glancing at his pathetic budget, reality hits him hard. His measly 50 gold can only buy a lowly servant gremlin. The rest of the catalog is absurdly overpriced, and sitting at the absolute top of the food chain is the Monarch itself. The price tag? A staggering 11 digits. An astronomical number that practically melts his brain just trying to read it. Sure, our protagonist would kill to add this god-tier being to his squad, but the cost is simply out of this world. But wait, the skill itself is not the most shocking part. This entire system interface, it is an exact carbon copy of his old game. the rotating holographic beasts beside the price tags. They perfectly match the ones from Titan Tactics. Only a few minor details have changed. In the game, he could instantly summon any unit he purchased. Kale grins as the realization hits him. This absolute cheat code must work exactly the same in real life. A wicked, confident smirk spreads across his face. He does not need bone-crushing physical strength to become an elite. Awakened, he will just let his monstrous legion absolutely obliterate his enemies. But thinking about his empty wallet, another crucial detail clicks into place. Back in Titan Tactics, players had two ways to get filthy rich: raid deadly dungeons or slaughter wild beasts and fence the loot. Translating that to the real world, the path is crystal clear. He needs to bathe in monster blood to farm the massive fortune he requires. There is just one massive glaring problem. His current physical stats are absolute trash. He is too weak to even crush a pathetic slime. Fighting a real threat right now would be suicide. With his back against the wall, he smashes the purchase button for the servant gremlin. A brilliant azure sphere materializes out of thin air, holding his very first minion. Cut to the massive chaotic lobby of the Vanguard Guild headquarters. Kyle steps up to the counter, ready to officially register as a solo F-class mercenary. The guild clerk scans his newly forged license. She pulls up 4 pathetic bounties, perfectly tailored for a weak rookie like him. Kale reviews the targets with a calculating gaze. Deliberately ignoring the safe routes, he chooses the most dangerous option: a gremlin wipeout mission in a desolate mountain village. The clerk gasps, urgently warning him about the deadly location. It is a complete dead zone. No backup can reach him out there. If things spiral out of control, he will be left to die alone in the wild. But that is exactly what our protagonist is aiming for. The very last thing he wants is nosy guild members discovering his insane system. The receptionist sighs heavily, feeling a painful sting of pity for a kid who is practically marching to his grave. Still, she officially updates his mission log. After a quick fingerprint scan, the deployment is locked in, and the coordinates are sent straight to his phone. Kale is officially greenlit for combat. His heart pounds with electrifying anticipation for his grand debut. After an exhausting journey to the Forgotten Settlement, the desperate client practically sprints out to greet him. The frail elder falls to his knees in pure gratitude, crying tears of joy that a heroic mercenary actually showed up. After all, no sane awakened would drag themselves to this wasteland for such a disgustingly low reward. Yet, as the old man looks up, doubt clouds his eyes. Can this scrawny kid really butcher those bloodthirsty monsters all alone? He genuinely fears Kale will not live to see tomorrow. Moved by the village elder's desperate plea, Jace flashes a fearless grin. He promises to wipe those vile pests from the face of the earth and restore peace to their home. Plunging deep into the dark woods where the monster nest is rumored to be, Jace encounters a scene that completely shatters his expectations. Rather than savage beasts, driven purely by bloodlust and primal rage, this pack of monsters is actually kicking back by a crystal-clear stream. They are peacefully sipping water just like ordinary people taking a break. Shaking off the bizarre sight, Jace accesses his spatial inventory. He retrieves his newly bound summon, currently resting in the shape of a pulsing blue sphere. Channeling his inner beast tamer, he hurls the glowing orb at lightning speed straight toward the enemy camp. The magical projectile lands right at the feet of the confused creatures. But for a heart-stopping second, absolutely nothing happens. A cold sweat drips down Jace's face. His grand summoning entrance has completely failed to activate. Sensing the killing intent from the human intruder, the pack instantly bares their razor-sharp fangs. They lunge forward with terrifying speed, ready to tear him limb from limb. Backed into a corner with zero options, Jace prepares to fight for his life barehanded. Refusing to back down, he clenches his fist tightly. He channels every ounce of his strength for a desperate counterattack. But right as a vicious claw is about to pierce his heart, the system interface finally flashes to life. His loyal familiar makes an earth-shattering entrance. Materializing from the void, it brutally smashes the attacking beast away with a colossal war club. Getting a clear look at his savior makes everything click in Jace's mind. Back in his early days streaming Mythic Blades online, his very first pet was a basic, bottom-tier imp. Through countless grueling battles, he had geared that pathetic minion in absolute god-tier armor. He evolved that garbage-tier mob into an unstoppable legendary beast that could solo 100 waves of nightmare-level bosses without breaking a sweat. He had proudly named that companion Grom. Glancing at the status window, the truth hits him like a freight train. This creature is wearing the exact same A-rank legendary gear Jace had spent months grinding to unlock. There is no longer a shadow of a doubt. His digital champion Grom has truly been brought to the real world. The mighty familiar goes absolutely berserk. With a terrifying roar, it literally rips the two Vanguard monsters to shreds. Realizing the overwhelming power gap, the final survivor completely abandons its pride. It turns tail and sprints away as fast as its legs can carry it. Sadly for the fleeing prey, Grom is equipped with the Phantom Stride boots. He blasts forward like a literal bolt of lightning. The overpowered minion clears the distance in a millisecond, slicing the final enemy in half before it can even let out a gasp. Jace simply stands there, completely frozen. His jaw is practically touching the dirt. Seeing a video game stat on a screen is one thing, but witnessing Grom's overwhelming devastation in real life is utterly terrifying. With the battlefield painted red, the brutal warrior casually jogs back to his master. Suddenly, it flashes an adorable puppy dog look, clearly begging for a head pat as a reward. Jace is struck speechless all over again. He never imagined a stone-cold killing machine could possess such a wholesome and affectionate personality. A crystalline ding echoes in his mind. The system reveals that Grom's loyalty level is currently sitting at 20 out of 100. The notification hints that maxing out this loyalty will unlock a legendary hidden skill. The normally calculating hardcore gamer, who didn't even want to touch the creature 5 minutes ago, instantly drops to the muddy floor. He wraps his arms around the beast like they are long-lost brothers reunited at last. Snapping back to reality, Jace spots a major problem. The defeated monsters haven't dropped a single shiny item. How the hell is he supposed to grind for cash? Fortunately, his brilliant companion is already one step ahead. Grom leaps from body to body, plunging his hand straight into their chests. He mercilessly rips out their life essence, extracting faintly glowing mana stones from the gory mess. A mystical portal of swirling cosmic energy opens up, and Grom casually tosses the glowing gems into the void. In exchange for those 3 low-tier cores, the Citadel of Mirages instantly wires 30 gold coins straight into Jace's cosmic bank account. The puzzle pieces finally lock together. Real life is not a video game where monsters explode into coins. He has to manually harvest their energy cores and pawn them off to the system. Thrilled by this discovery, Jace showers his genius pet with even more heavy praises for solving the loot mechanic so effortlessly. With his wallet finally gaining some weight, he turns around to collect physical trophies to prove his quest completion to the Hunter's Vanguard. But fate clearly has a twisted sense of humor. Those 3 grunts were nothing more than a warm-up. A catastrophic roar erupts from the heart of the Shadow Woods, freezing the blood in their veins. Boom! 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 The earth-shattering footsteps grow louder by the second, making the very ground beneath them tremble. Ancient trees are snapped like mere toothpicks as a colossal mountainous behemoth violently smashes into the clearing. It is a towering, bloodthirsty Cyclops. Jace feels his soul practically leave his body. A catastrophic beast of this magnitude is only supposed to exist inside high-level B-rank dungeons. It makes zero logical sense for a walking natural disaster to be casually strolling through a pathetic E-rank beginner zone. But catching his breath, Jace notices a crucial detail. The titanic monster is heaving heavily, its thick hide covered in deep, bleeding gashes. It had obviously just escaped a brutal death match. Even so, a wounded, cornered beast is the deadliest kind. Underestimating a boss-tier threat is a guaranteed one-way ticket to the afterlife. And to make this nightmare absolute hell, a blaring crimson warning flashes across his vision. Grom's summoning timer only has 3 minutes left before he vanishes completely. The faithful summon steps into the fray, completely unshaken by the colossal beast looming over him. Baku throws a fearless smirk back at his master, a silent promise that he has got this handled. Channeling mana into his shadow step boots, the little warrior explodes forward. He becomes a blur of motion, charging straight into the jaws of death. A deafening roar shakes the earth. The Titan heaves a massive, uprooted oak tree, swinging it with lethal force to crush the tiny intruder. But Baku's agility is on another level entirely. He launches himself into the sky, coiling his body mid-air to build up maximum momentum. Dropping like a flaming meteor, he brings his weapon crashing down toward the monster's head. In a panic, the giant raises its thick, muscular arms to block the lethal blow. But Baku pours every ounce of his energy into the strike. The sheer, overwhelming force is simply too much for the beast to withstand. A sickening crack echoes through the woods as thick bones splinter into pieces. Driving his enhanced power past its absolute limit, Baku triggers a devastating shockwave. The blast levels the surrounding trees, forcing Kyle to brace himself just to avoid getting blown away. When the dust finally settles, the mighty Titan lies utterly flattened beneath the explosive impact. Kale's jaw practically hits the floor at this godlike display of strength. Overjoyed, he sprints forward, breaking into a triumphant victory jig. With merely 3 seconds left before his summoning timer hits 0, Baku violently rips the glowing crystal from the monster's chest and presents the prize to his master. The loyal warrior then shatters into countless specks of blue light, leaving Kale grasping an incredibly pure, top-tier energy core. The system's mystical rift materializes out of thin air, ready to consume the legendary loot. Tossing the mid-grade gem into the void rewards him with a staggering 100 gold coins. His wallet is looking beautifully thick, sitting at a sweet 130 gold. But the divine interface is not done blessing him just yet. To celebrate his very first solo hunt, Kale receives a legendary premium summoning voucher. This golden ticket grants hunters a single chance to draw artifacts of mythical rarity. Even though any seasoned player knows the odds are totally rigged, he uses the voucher anyway. A blinding light flashes, revealing an ancient, heavily jeweled treasure chest. Then, the system interface drops a massive bombshell. The divine tier equipment hiding inside is not restricted to his familiars. Kale can actually wear these relics himself. It is the ultimate cheat code to fix his laughably tragic physical stats. But right before he can revel in his insane luck, the sharp crack of breaking wood sends a chill down his spine. Someone is coming. A squad of heavily armed elite hunters bursts through the foliage. They have clearly been tracking the blood trail of the wounded beast. Their hunt led them exactly to the right spot, but their prized prey is already a lifeless pancake. When Kale gets a good look at the intruders, absolute dread washes over him. He immediately recognizes the fierce aura of the woman standing at the front. It is Valeria, the notoriously ruthless captain of the Crimson Peak Guild's 2nd Division. The pieces click into place instantly. Her squad had been battling the Titan, chipping away at its health before it managed to flee. Getting caught stealing a kill from a top-tier syndicate is basically a guaranteed death sentence in the hunter world. Kale tries to silently back away into the shadows, but Valeria's icy voice instantly commands him to stop dead in his tracks. In the blink of an eye, her elite vanguards fan out and block every escape route. With a cold, professional glare, she introduces herself and firmly states that the mutated giant belonged to them. The irritation on her face is impossible to hide. A random nobody just swept in and stole their hard-earned glory, and she is furious. The suffocating pressure in the air is enough to make any rookie pass out. Valeria shifts her sharp gaze to the mutilated corpse. Her tactical mind races, trying to calculate how a solitary kid took down such an absolute menace, even if it was already bleeding out. It took 3 seasoned B-rank elites fighting for their lives, and they still could not put the monster in the dirt. Doing the math, she instantly assumes this mysterious stranger has to be an A-rank powerhouse in disguise. Masking her hostility, she politely extends a hand, presenting herself as the vanguard of Crimson Peak. The cunning captain is testing the waters, desperate to figure out exactly what kind of monster she just crossed paths with. Playing it cool, Kale shakes her hand and offers a brief, humble greeting. But the truly mind-blowing part? Valeria's unique sensory skill detects the gaze of a celestial constellation locked onto this boy. Her frustration spikes immediately. She scans him from head to toe, utterly baffled as to why the divine beings favor such a devastatingly average-looking dude. Burning with curiosity about his hidden depths, she probes him to confirm if he truly eradicated the giant completely solo. Kale gives a vague, non-committal nod, admitting the solo kill. His casual attitude sets off every alarm bell in her head, convincing her that he is masking some terrifying, world-breaking power. She quickly switches to diplomatic mode. She details their brutal clash with the beast, smoothly claiming she is just relieved he stepped in before the rampaging monster reached civilian territory. Our protagonist just shrugs it off with a calm smile, claiming it was nothing more than a stroke of pure, dumb luck. But Valeria sees right through that massive pile of garbage. You do not just get lucky against an armor-clad titan capable of leveling mountains. Her suspicion is now dialed up to maximum. To test his character and avoid making a terrifying enemy, she makes a shocking pivot, offering him the entire bounty for the kill. The mighty Crimson Peak Guild is literally going out of their way to contact KL personally and ensure his bank account gets the massive influx of cash. It is an absolutely mind-boggling concession. Kale is internally freaking out, wondering why these ruthless elites are so eager to surrender their hard-earned loot. But Valeria's tactical genius shines through. The gold is not free, as it comes with a single condition. A burning question she absolutely needs the answer to. Jace knew this massive opportunity carried a hidden price tag, but he was totally caught off guard when the elite hunter suddenly held out her phone. Honestly, it was pretty hilarious. The fierce Yuna looked completely flustered, like a shy student asking her crush for his contact info. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Meanwhile, our unbelievably clueless main character just stood there, completely oblivious to the romantic tension. Moving on, Jace crossed paths with the village elder. The old man was practically overflowing with gratitude toward the hunter who had rescued his people from certain doom. Our hero was simply glad to have carved out a safe route through the treacherous peaks. Listening closely, he realized just how much suffering these locals had endured. Desperate to repay the life debt, the elder made an offer. This was perfect timing. Jace had been dying to uncover the hidden coordinates of the legendary Zenith Monument. Nodding deeply, the village leader pointed toward a steep, winding trail that plunged straight into the valley. He promised the monument waited at the very bottom, adding that this specific ancient path always blessed travelers with incredible fortune. Though Jace usually ignored superstitions, his spirits soared with anticipation. This stroke of destiny presented the absolute perfect moment. He summoned his hard-earned loot box, ready to test his luck against the merciless gacha system. His strategy was simple. Soak up every ounce of this location's lucky aura before cracking open that notoriously stingy reward box. But suddenly, his screen lit up with a notification. It was a direct message from Yuna, trying to organize his payment for the recent monster subjugation. He blinked in pure shock, realizing she was actually paying incredibly close attention to him. The craziest detail? She bypassed the official Apex Vanguard communication channels and reached out using her strictly private number. However, romance was the last thing on our protagonist's mind. His blazing eyes were entirely locked onto the glowing loot chest sitting right in front of him. This was a legendary container he never dreamed he would actually touch in reality. Even with the system's absolutely garbage drop rates, the excitement was overwhelming. Just the mere possibility of securing a high-tier artifact made his heart race. Jace folded his hands in a desperate prayer, begging the universe for at least an A-rank drop as he confidently triggered the unsealing sequence. A blinding surge of radiant energy erupted from the seal. Holographic projections of epic weapons spun through the air, flashing through every tier of power. The absolute pinnacle of the prize pool materialized before him, an awe-inspiring S-rank armor set, forged from blood-crimson steel and trimmed in divine gold. As the roulette spun to a halt, the blinding aura shifted from a brilliant gold into an intense, majestic red. Our hero stared at the supreme treasure in pure disbelief, right before the system deliberately blurred out his final prize. Later that night, in his dimly lit room, Jace sat in deep contemplation, trying to wrap his head around his chaotic new reality. Even though he finally discovered a reliable method to farm gold, a massive roadblock still stood in his way. He needed to train his shadow beasts, but the system's strange mechanics were completely confusing him. Scanning his active summoning roster, he saw the standard option to recruit a hobgoblin brawler. But to his absolute astonishment, a high-tier orc marauder was sitting right there on the available list. Purchasing a basic hobgoblin vanguard only required 70 gold coins, which was basically pocket change at this point. The detail that melted his brain was the orc marauder's price tag. It demanded a staggering 420 gold. Despite being completely out of his current power bracket, the system still offered it for recruitment. Then, like a bolt of lightning, the truth struck him. The summoning system operated on a strict rule. He could only recruit the specific species of monsters he had slain with his own two hands. If this theory held true, it perfectly explained the restricted roster. Only the hobgoblin and orc evolutionary trees were unlocked, regardless of the massive gap in their summoning costs. The harsh reality settled in. Jace would literally have to put his life on the line and hunt terrifying new beasts himself to expand his army. It sounded like an impossible, death-defying grind. However, considering the absolute jackpot he pulled from the gacha earlier, survival actually seemed within his grasp. Wait, about that dramatic chest opening. He didn't actually score that crimson S-rank armor. Instead, the system awarded him a pair of unique tier spectacles that practically supercharged his base stats and granted a passive skill. He was genuinely shell-shocked that a unique grade artifact had dropped into his lap. This wasn't just some standard loot. It was a flawless, one-of-a-kind treasure that most hunters would kill for. For context, within the hunter community, a single unique grade piece of gear violently outclasses 3 A-rank weapons combined. This was a legendary stroke of luck. Eager to test their true potential, he slid the mystical frames onto his face. The moment Jace activated them, an endless stream of hidden system data instantly flooded his retinas. It was like peering into the Akashic records themselves. Every single one of his core attributes skyrocketed by 5 points, while a divine new ability called the Eye of Truth unlocked in his skill tree. This god-tier passive let him rip through the interface to read an opponent's hidden stats and abilities. The only catch? It was strictly limited to 2 activations per 24 hours. In simple gaming terms, it was the ultimate appraisal tool, an absolute cheat code for gathering enemy intelligence. Jace clenched his fists, feeling the explosive surge in his base power. He was absolutely obsessed with the insane tactical advantage, debating if he should immediately test the scan on a nearby target just to verify the interface. Regardless of the daily limit, this artifact was the exact game changer he desperately needed to survive the upcoming trials. If he could accurately dissect a boss monster's hidden traits and weaknesses before engaging, the hunting process would transform into an absolute slaughter. Pulling the glasses off, a cold shiver ran down Jace's spine. Paranoia crept in as he questioned his own sudden success. Why was the mysterious system suddenly spoon-feeding him such heaven-defying luck? The terrifying weight of destiny threatened to crush him completely. But before he could spiral any further, a blaring, blood-red warning interface violently glitched right across his vision. The mechanical voice ordered him to establish an immediate defensive perimeter. The system was going absolutely nuclear, blaring emergency sirens that shook the very foundation of his mind. Terrifying pop-up windows spammed across his vision as he stood paralyzed in pure shock. Jace locked eyes with the quest log, and his blood ran freezing cold. A completely unrecorded apocalyptic 701st invasion wave was scheduled to breach his reality in exactly 10 minutes. He was completely defenseless. Our hero had absolutely zero clue how to fortify his territory against a disaster of this magnitude. His mind flashed with gruesome images of a literal nightmare. Endless legions of hell-forged beasts, ready to tear him limb from limb the second that countdown hit zero. It was equivalent to a level 1 novice casually stumbling into a server-wiping raid boss. Panic seized his chest, and his trembling fingers desperately searched for an option to reject the quest entirely. But the ruthless system flashed one final, devastating condition. If he failed to repel this monstrous vanguard, the Phantom Citadel would be permanently wiped from existence. Everything he had fought for, every ounce of power he possessed, would be erased into total nothingness. Now, this is where things get truly insane. Kyle stares into the abyss of a potential timeline, bearing witness to towering skylines crumbling into apocalyptic ashes. One mistake means total annihilation. The apocalyptic wave is moments away, and our guy is desperately racking his brain on how to crush these beasts. An azure rift violently twists open, mirroring the exact portals from his virtual conquests. Yet, Kale is completely baffled as to why fate dragged him into this nightmare. Worse still, getting dragged into this mess carries a world-ending penalty if he dares to lose. The stakes are beyond terrifying, but the ruthless system does not care, declaring that the slaughter will begin in exactly 10 minutes. Realizing that panicking will only get him killed, our hero steels his resolve and focuses entirely on holding the line. In the virtual world, this was just a basic siege simulator where the only goal was protecting the sacred fortress from invading hordes. Picture a standard tower defense setup, but dialed up to an absolute nightmare difficulty. Just like surviving a brutal run in Dark Souls, flawless strategy and precise deployment timing are the only things keeping you alive. You have to perfectly synergize various stronghold barricades with a strategic arsenal of relics. Mastering that chaotic combination to create the ultimate survival tactic is the core essence of this brutal system. Right now, his command interface operates like a holographic tablet, and his first move is to scan his available beast roster. It turns out, our guy only has 5 pathetic units at his disposal, 4 frail imps, and a single, lumbering behemoth. This catches him off guard, since Kale can somehow command these low-tier grunts without paying the usual summoning fees for this phase. He briefly hopes he might tap into the supreme power of the Overlord class. Sadly, the system mercilessly locks away that god-tier ability. Desperate, he tries dropping some gold to bolster his ranks, but the interface flashes red, blocking any roster changes once the siege timer starts ticking. Our boy is practically set up for execution, leaving him wondering if this twisted interface actually wants him dead. The 71st wave introduces the dreaded Baron Bloodscale and his royal guard of Crimson Drakes. This boss boasts a monstrous 6-star threat level, commanding a relentless swarm of 61 winged terrors. Facing a 6-star calamity right out of the gate is an absolute death sentence. These celestial ratings dictate ultimate combat supremacy and power scaling. And in this brutal universe, whenever that power gap is too wide, the weaker creature gets instantly atomized. But the truly horrifying part is that he is forced to battle a literal 6-star titan using only a miserable squad of 1-star fodder. Mathematically, he should be wiped out by a single Drake exhaling in his direction. KL is completely broke, with 0 backup troops to salvage his crumbling front line. Just as despair sets in, the interface throws him a lifeline, granting 1 legendary barricade and a single enhancement relic applied to his entire squad. At first glance, it sounds like a massive buff, but our hero is downright insulted that the system expects him to survive an apocalyptic wave with such pitiful handouts. The odds are astronomically stacked against him. Yet, Kyle has to weaponize whatever scraps he has left, tapping into his godly experience as a top-ranking veteran of this hellish simulator. His fingers dance across the holographic field, perfectly mapping out a defensive grid based on pure instinct. With a mere 8 minutes left, he furiously calibrates his formations until the digital clock drops to 15 seconds. Once his desperate gambit is finally locked in, the countdown hits absolute zero. Kale stands his ground as the storm breaks. The siege kicks off with the catastrophic wrath of the abyssal drakes, their massive wings completely blacking out the heavens. Their bloodlust is singularly focused on obliterating the central stronghold. Spearheaded by the merciless Baron, the vanguard immediately crashes into the defensive perimeter, viciously tearing at the magical ward to rip it apart. The arrogant commander scowls, visibly disgusted by his elite squad, failing to breach the initial line. A ferocious swarm of beasts dive bombs the glowing perimeter, but it barely leaves a scratch, proving the sheer brilliance of Kale's layout. His opening move was activating the Absolute Aegis protocol, multiplying the fortress defenses to 100% against all incoming strikes. This legendary shield is theoretically unbreakable, but it carries a massive catch. It only activates when the player commands units strictly at or below the 2-star threshold. However, no matter how flawlessly our hero deployed the magical wall, an enraged Drake unleashes a scorching breath attack, instantly melting right through the defensive layer. Luckily, the relic's passive regeneration kicks in, barely keeping the crystalline dome from shattering completely. But a catastrophic flaw remains in this defense. The ward registers every single individual strike as a 1-point deduction, meaning, if all 61 airborne terrors dive simultaneously, the shield's durability would instantly plummet to fatal levels. The enemies found the blind spot, but our genius strategist has a brilliantly toxic countermeasure. It is called hyperspeed manual spamming. Our guy channels the insane reaction speed of a competitive rhythm gamer. By manually pulsing the command, each frantic tap forcefully injects 1 durability point back into the dome, making his own raw reaction speed the ultimate healing engine. Kale's hand screams in burning agony, but this maddening barrage of clicks is the absolute only way to maintain an impenetrable defense against the apocalypse. But here lies the ultimate question. How in the world is he supposed to conquer these divine-level monstrosities? The solution is brilliantly simple. The energy shield deflects an Azure Wyvern's strike, chipping away exactly 1 hit point from the beast. Under normal circumstances, mere gremlins could never scratch a dragon. But thanks to his legendary artifact, the Void Pendulum, the rules of reality are completely flipped. This A-class relic grants our protagonist the absolute power to bypass any level difference and deal guaranteed damage. The massive beasts slowly lose their stamina, even if it is just a single drop of health at a time. One of the flying reptiles glares down, furious that a lowly minion is mocking its absolute power. Yet, despite its earth-shattering fury, the winged terror is completely powerless to break through. Calculating the math, Jace realizes he needs 60 grueling hours to wipe out the entire monster wave. The true nightmare begins now, as he has to manually sustain the shield's regeneration for 60 agonizing hours straight. A brutal war of endurance kicks off. Jace taps his screen with blinding speed, wondering if his tiny warriors will perish first, or if his own body will give out. Lord Malicor's grand army clashes against Jace's defenses, locking both sides in a desperate, unyielding stalemate. Hours bleed into each other, and exhaustion starts clawing at our hero's mind. But the very second he reaches for a glass of water, a freezing chill paralyzes his entire body. The harsh reality sets in. The system strictly forbids any physical interaction outside the digital interface. To put it simply, Jace has to endure pure hell. 0 sleep, absolutely no food or water, and 0 distractions of any kind. He must sacrifice his mortal needs entirely just to survive this trial. Trapped completely in this physical prison, he knows an ordinary gamer would shatter mentally under this crushing wave of despair. But our main character is forged from different steel. He smiles through the pain, declaring this as just the tutorial phase. Suddenly, one of the sky beasts erupts in blinding fury. It unleashes a catastrophic breath of dark flames, melting away a massive chunk of the energy shield. Pushed to the absolute brink, Jace feels his blood pumping, as this adrenaline rush is exactly why he lives for the grind. Only 2 brutal hours have passed. 58 more hours of pure torture remain on the clock, and the penalty for dying is far too devastating to accept. Failure means the absolute annihilation of the real world. Embracing his inner god-tier gaming instincts, Jace takes total command of the battlefield, swearing to push beyond his mortal limits. 12 soul-crushing hours drag by in a blur, yet the finish line is not even close. The reflected damage is slowly but surely stacking up. Inch by inch, the relentless gremlins are whittling down the colossal dragon health bars. Two majestic wyverns finally crash to the ground. However, the Dark Army's endless swarm continues. Even so, Jace remains perfectly calm, locking his focus on maintaining this agonizing rhythm. Three more titanic beasts fall into the dust. His unyielding willpower refuses to break. 24 hours fade away. The kill count creeps to 10, then 12. As a squadron of wyverns dive bombs the sacred barrier, two armored drakes are completely shredded by the recoil. Lord Malachor watches in disbelief as his unstoppable legion crumbles. Wyverns plummet from the sky like shattered glass, dragging the armored drakes down with them. And after an absolutely legendary marathon of endurance, only two terrifying monsters are left standing. But tragedy strikes. Jace's fingers lock up completely, and he can no longer tap the interface to heal his shattered shield. A brave gremlin charges forward, but the winged beast effortlessly tears past the tiny warrior. It unleashes a devastating twin-fang strike, hurtling straight toward the final layer of defense. This single blow is the ultimate game-changer. The supposedly unbreakable barrier shatters into a million pixels, violently jolting Jace's exhausted soul wide awake. That fraction of a second, his tired eyes closed, it cost him his ultimate sanctuary. The fortress is completely exposed. If it takes even a glancing blow right now, the entire sanctuary will be turned to ash. But against all odds, Raze makes the ultimate sacrifice. The tiny warrior charges headfirst into the Shadow Dragon's path. Honestly, this is the most badass moment a lowly monster class has ever had in history. This absolute legend deserves his own spin-off series. The final clash is set, a bottom-tier gremlin versus an apex sky tyrant. Raze unlocks a terrifying, death-defying aura. He channels every ounce of his life force into his weapon, aiming directly for the monster's hardened skull. The impact is so earth-shattering that it leaves our hero speechless. The dark dragon's skull caves in, and Lord Malachor's invasion force is officially wiped out. The impossible wave is finally cleared, leaving Jace in a state of absolute shock. A triumphant roar escapes his lips. But before he can even take a full breath of relief, his consciousness cuts to black and he collapses on the floor. When his eyes slowly flutter open, golden sunlight is flooding his room. He passed out so hard, he has no memory of hitting the ground. Blinking away the sleep, he stares at the glowing blue interface. The victory screen announces his glorious loot, granting him 20 celestial bones, 10 unbreakable scales, and 5 pulsing monster cores. It is a massive haul of high-tier materials, yet he has zero clue how to actually craft with them right now. A new system prompt suddenly echoes in his mind. It reveals 3 hidden conditions must be met before he can finally communicate with the enigmatic architect. The first requirement demands a brutal 50 hours of total survival time, while the second asks for a flawless defense record. Jace has no idea who this mysterious entity is, nor does he understand why a simple chat requires jumping through so many impossible hoops. But right now, our protagonist is just thrilled. He has already smashed 2 of the requirements, bringing him inches away from unlocking this secret lore. Finally, the ultimate clear reward drops. A blinding golden light erupts from his screen, swallowing the entire room and leaving Jace completely mesmerized. As the glow fades, his real-world phone lights up. The screen displays 7 missed calls from his gorgeous admirer, Ilara. Meanwhile, deep within the Zenith Syndicate's headquarters, Ilara's intimidating older brother is violently rejecting the news. He cannot believe an absolute trash-tier E-class somehow managed to butcher a Tangent-class ogre. Built like a walking mountain, this towering brute is absolutely convinced our hero is faking his achievements. But Ilara fiercely steps up to defend him, dropping a bombshell secret. Whispers are spreading through the underworld that Jace has undergone a legendary second awakening. Draven scoffed at the very idea. A second awakening? Those were nothing more than fairy tales in this brutal industry. But right on cue, the man of the hour finally appeared. Kale sprinted toward them, gasping for breath. Realizing he had kept them waiting, he quickly bowed his head. He offered a flurry of apologies for his sudden and unexplained disappearance. Despite Kyle swallowing his pride and apologizing relentlessly, Draven was not having it. His overprotective brother instincts flared, absolutely furious that this rookie made his precious sister wait for 3 whole days. Leah stepped right between them, scolding her brother to dial down his crushing hostility. Watching their intense bickering, our main character finally grasped the complicated sibling dynamic at play. Turning her warm attention back to Kale, she broke down the aftermath of the bloody battle. She detailed the legendary loot drops from the Titan-class behemoth and explained exactly how his massive payout would be processed. But Kyle waved off the money talk. His eyes gleamed with singular purpose, insisting they handle his official report at the Federal Awakener Bureau first. They marched straight up to the front desk of the bureau. Leah slammed her hands down, giving her passionate eyewitness testimony of how this absolute madman soloed the towering behemoth. She passionately argued his case to the staff. Even without a monster core as physical proof, she swore on her hunter honor that no one else was present in that devastated sector. The clerk hesitated, but Draven unleashed a terrifying glare that could freeze hell over. Faced with the silent wrath of an elite hunter, the poor worker immediately surrendered. Still, the trembling receptionist had to cite the rulebook. Taking down a high-tier threat strictly demanded a formal verification of magical power. Protocol was protocol. In simple terms, they needed to scan Kale's magical output. The Bureau had to prove his combat stats matched his ridiculous and seemingly impossible claims. They brought out the dreaded resonance crystal, and that was a massive problem. Leah knew he had unlocked a new system, but even her high-level appraisal skills had completely failed to read him earlier. Panic flashed in her eyes. Desperate to protect his secret, she tried to leverage her own stellar reputation to bypass the crystal test entirely. However, Kale just smirked. Brimming with absolute confidence, he boldly stepped up to the plate. Just moments before, another rookie had barely scraped by with a pathetic D-rank evaluation. Now, the spotlight shifted directly to our hero. Leah held her breath, her heart pounding against her ribs like a massive war drum. Draven, on the other hand, crossed his arms in dark anticipation. He wanted to witness this so-called miracle with his own eyes. Was this kid truly worthy of drawing the glorious gaze of the celestial beings? If the numbers came up short, then this whole spectacle was just a pathetic joke. A weakling deserved no place in their cutthroat world. The ultimate moment of truth arrived. Without equipping a single artifact or stat-boosting item, Kale pressed his bare palm against the ancient monolith. A wave of heavy nostalgia washed over him. 7 long years had passed since his first humiliating awakening. Now, the crystal violently roared to life, pulsing with blinding energy while his companions watched in dead silence. Draven's eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated disbelief. The violent swirling storm of mana within the crystal suddenly snapped into a solid blinding color. The golden letters hovered in the air for all to see. Kyle stood perfectly still as the system boldly declared him a catastrophic S-rank awakener. The entire lobby completely froze. Heavy gasps echoed through the grand hall as seasoned veterans dropped their weapons in absolute shock. But here's the ultimate twist. Kale had no idea he would hit that legendary tier until he claimed his latest quest reward. Deep in the dungeon shadows, the system had granted him a game-breaking ability. He had unlocked the Phantom Sovereign skill. This insane cheat code allowed him to completely absorb the combat stats of the strongest boss he had recently slaughtered. Of course, such godly power came with brutal restrictions. The stolen stats only lasted for 30 minutes, and the skill had a grueling 24-hour cooldown. In short, our guy hijacked the demonic energy of Duke Vesper. He triggered the phantom power right before touching the crystal, flooding his veins with stolen might. Jacked up on monstrous boss stats, he successfully manipulated the evaluation system. For that brief, glorious window, his magical pressure was truly equal to a nation-level threat. It was the perfect, untraceable crime. The Bureau's advanced technology was completely fooled, permanently etching his name into the archives as an S-rank rookie. Both siblings were left utterly speechless. Even the arrogant Draven had to swallow his massive pride and nod in deep respect. With his devastating power verified on paper, Kale was officially crowned the sole conqueror of the behemoth. The terrified clerk handed over his shiny new hunter license, her hands visibly trembling. The impossible had just been recorded in modern history. Throwing a casual salute, Kale thanked the duo for carrying him through the tedious paperwork. He turned to leave, but Draven suddenly blocked his path, offering to buy him a premium cup of coffee. This was no casual hangout. The vice master of the Apex Syndicate was extending a formal recruitment offer right in the middle of the crowded lobby. The surrounding hunters held their breath in bitter envy. Expecting Kale to desperately accept, the massive crowd leaned in. Instead, our main character flashed a cocky grin and flat-out rejected the elite hunter. He smoothly declared that Leah was the only syndicate contact he would ever need. Dropping that massive bombshell, Kale turned on his heel and walked straight out the glass doors. Draven was left completely frozen, his jaw practically hitting the polished floor. By the time Kale unlocked his apartment door, the internet had already exploded. His masked face was plastered across every major news network on the continent. Breaking news bulletins from the Bureau had just gone live, officially registering him as a B-rank awakener to the general public. You see, to prevent mass hysteria, the government had strict censorship laws. No hunter was legally allowed to jump more than 3 tiers in a single day, regardless of their actual monstrous test scores. Later that night, KL booted up his live stream. The chat was moving at light speed, with half the viewers completely trashing the boring gameplay on his screen. Our guy played it incredibly cool. He sipped his drink, acting completely clueless, while the chat spammed wild rumors about the mysterious new god-tier rookie who publicly humiliated Draven. The comments were absolutely wild. Die-hard fans debated if this absolute legend would join the Apex Syndicate, while insiders leaked spicy rumors that he had already rejected their top brass. Letting them hype him up for a few more glorious minutes, Kyle suddenly paused the game. A sly smile crept onto his face as he announced a massive shift in his channel's content. He wanted to pivot to real-life hunting streams. At first, the chat spammed sleeping emojis, completely uninterested. But then, he tossed out a dangerous question, daring them to pick his next deadly dungeon target. The chat immediately froze in sheer disbelief. Broadcasting a live raid experience? That was considered a severe federal crime, with massive prison time attached. Every awakened individual was bound by a brutal non-disclosure agreement. Filming inside the chaotic, blood-soaked dimensions was strictly forbidden by the global government. But KL was an absolute genius. He loopholed the corrupt system by promising to upload the official clearance certificates, followed by dramatic storytelling sessions of his bloody battles. The viewers completely lost their minds, knowing they were about to witness the birth of a streaming legend. The elite factions thought they could bury the truth of the labyrinths forever. But one lone broadcaster is about to shatter their illusions. The chat is going wild. Someone dares him to raid the Chaos Worm's lair. Suddenly, 50,000 credits drop, demanding a run through the Titan's cauldron. Before he can even react, a massive 1 million credit bomb explodes on screen. The request? Tear apart the broodmother in Arachne's domain. Jumping from 50,000 to 1 million is absolute madness. The sheer volume of wealth is making our main character dizzy. KL tells his chat to take a breath. But his eyes are locked on a brand new, glowing alert at the top. 10 freaking million credits. The digital counter spins out of control. The entire chat goes dead silent in pure shock. Everyone thinks a billionaire just entered the stream. Little do they know, it is the right hand of the monarch, and he demands our hero's attention. Kale swallows hard, wondering what kind of suicide mission costs 10 million. He asks the VIP for their terms. The answer chills his blood. They want him at the absolute bottom of the whispering abyss. The chat immediately erupts in panic. It is a guaranteed death sentence. Not a single soul has ever walked out of there alive. The whispering abyss is divided into 3 brutal zones: the outer gates, the sunken waters, and the unknown depths. Rookies can farm the outer gates easily enough, but the sunken waters in the middle, that is where the real nightmare begins. As for the unknown depths, it is a total blank spot on the map. Every single raiding party got slaughtered at the water's edge. Only one legend ever survived the crossing: Riker, the undisputed powerhouse. But even he hit a wall of absolute despair and retreated. Now Kale is being bribed to attempt the exact same impossible feat. Even his own gamer instincts are screaming danger. But the mysterious benefactor drops a lifeline. He does not need to conquer the labyrinth. Just stepping foot into the unknown depths will fulfill the contract. That completely flips the script on the difficulty. The VIP even promises massive backup if our boy somehow manages to slay the boss. The regular viewers are begging him to decline. They are terrified for his life. Nobody wants to watch their favorite streamer die live on camera for clout. Kale fully grasps the sheer terror of this place, but a quick scout and run, he can handle that. Plus, the fact that this billionaire backer secretly wants the zone cleared and is willing to fund it, that is too good to ignore. Dread sits heavy in his stomach. He is definitely not eager to face this nightmare, but he stares right into the lens and fiercely declares his acceptance. Cut to the Awakening Association. A bewildered clerk is staring at his application to solo raid the Whispering Abyss. When he mentions his destination is the very bottom, she pales. She warns him that walking in there alone is basically signing his own death warrant. Kale just gives her a confident smile and tells her to stamp the paper. She sighs and schedules his dive for next week, but our main character shakes his head. He needs this barrier lifted immediately. A solo operation requires 0 party coordination anyway. Yielding to his stubbornness, she secures him a slot for tomorrow. That works perfectly for Kale. With his entry locked in for 4 o'clock, our hero grabs his permit and strides toward the exit. But trouble is waiting at the lobby doors. A high-profile duo blocks his path, demanding a private word. It is Thorn and Alara, the ruthless human resources directors for the Apex Vanguard and the Crimson Eclipse. Kale immediately connects the dots. Word of his explosive class awakening must have already hit the underworld grapevines. Both Apex and Crimson are foaming at the mouth to slap a collar on him. After all, they are two of the three most dominant factions in the country. They both promise mountains of wealth, eager to utterly crush whatever pathetic contract the ironclad bastion offered him. But Kale could not care less about corporate politics. He brushes past the elite executives, his mind locked entirely on his upcoming battle. Leashing himself to a guild would only chain his boundless potential. The only thing that matters right now is surviving the labyrinth. Speaking of survival, the legendary S-ranker Riker's phone suddenly rings. It is our boy, calling with a game-changing update. Kyle casually drops the bombshell that he is heading straight for the unknown depths. The exact same abyss that completely broke Riker. That is exactly why he is dialing the powerhouse. He needs every scrap of intel the veteran has. Naturally, Riker crosses his arms, refusing to hand over top-secret data for free. But then our hero smirks, revealing he holds the hidden key to shattering the dungeon. The Vice Master freezes in absolute shock. Kale sweetens the pot, promising to broadcast to millions that the ironclad bastion was instrumental to his victory. That is a massive public relations victory they cannot afford to lose. The bait is set, and Riker is completely hooked. Still, the veteran eyes him with suspicion. Can this kid truly conquer the unbeatable? Kale answers with unflinching, absolute confidence. Seeing this raw aura, Riker immediately pivots back to recruiting him. Obviously, our main character shoots him down instantly. Riker chuckles, acting high and mighty as if ironclad is his only viable option. That is when Kale drops the final hammer. He casually mentions that the Apex Vanguard and the Crimson Eclipse are practically begging at his doorstep. The silence on the line is deafening. The revelation hits the S-ranker like a physical blow, confirming his worst fears about his rivals moving in. Kale twists the knife, making it crystal clear that Ironclad's leverage is practically zero in this war. Utterly cornered by the rookie's mind games, Riker surrenders. But his voice turns deadly serious as he gives one final warning. He admits he is completely blind to what lies at the absolute bottom. And worse? The labyrinth's core might have mutated entirely over the past year. Jace took the setback in stride, adapting as he always did. The moment he stepped up to the rendezvous point, pushing his signature glasses up the bridge of his nose, the veteran hunters waiting there instantly locked their eyes on him. Their imposing bald leader stepped forward, chest puffed out, declaring himself as Grom of the notorious Ironclad Guild. The young main character offered a polite nod, but the bald veteran had already pulled his evaluation file. Grom was an arrogant piece of work who possessed zero experience dealing with an S-rank awakened, and he clearly despised the fact that Jace was joining them as a solo applicant. Dripping with hostility, the seasoned veteran made his stance crystal clear. His squad had their own primary objective to conquer, and they would not lift a single finger to keep the rookie alive. Unfazed by the pathetic display of ego, Jace coolly accepted the harsh terms. The bald brute scoffed and turned his back, dismissing the S-rank title as a meaningless badge in the brutal reality of the abyss. Honestly, even Jace was surprised by the sheer level of unwarranted hostility radiating from them on day one. Securing a spot in this raid was a miracle itself, since high-tier gates strictly mandated a minimum party size and required a grueling month-long reservation process. These guys had been waiting in agonizing suspense for weeks. Meanwhile, Jace just waltzed right in on the first day, naturally sparking their bitter envy. Unbothered by their glaring, the young prodigy subtly activated his mystic perception skill to gauge their true combat power. The results were laughable. Every single one of them possessed trash-tier stats that would never survive the terrifying depths of the abyss. This sparked a sudden realization that someone higher up might be using this useless squad as sacrificial pawns to monitor his movements. Knowing he would eventually ditch this deadweight, a subtle grin crept onto Jace's face. Catching the expression, Grom spun around, demanding to know what was so damn funny. Jace casually brushed it off by claiming a random joke crossed his mind. But the fragile egos of the ironclad veterans instantly shattered, and they aggressively stepped up, ready to draw blood. Just before steel could clash, the association staff slammed the heavy switch, violently tearing open the dimensional rift as vicious green lightning arced through the air. The officials barked out desperate orders, warning the strike team to cross the threshold immediately before the unstable portal collapsed. For our young hero, this was the breathtaking moment he would step into a genuine combat zone for the very first time. Stepping through the spatial tear, Jace felt a rush of anticipation. His eyes scanned the glowing blue system panels that materialized, detailing the spatial capacity and raid limitations. But in the shadows of the interface, his mysterious celestial sponsor sent a cryptic message of encouragement, secretly intervening on his behalf. The divine entity forcibly twisted the very fabric of the dungeon's reality. As the squad materialized on the other side, Grom instantly felt a chilling dread crawl up his spine. The terrain surrounding them was utterly unrecognizable, drastically violating every known intel report about the initial safe zone. Panic gripped the bald leader's throat as his subordinates frantically pointed at a massive, ominous body of water, screaming that a lake had absolutely no business being at the starting point. The veteran hunters knew the layout by heart, and this was an impossible anomaly. Though it was Jace's first raid, he knew damn well the first floor was supposed to be a basic warm-up zone. Comparing the chaotic scenery against the detailed blueprints Ren had provided, absolutely nothing matched up. In that heart-stopping moment, the horrifying truth dawned on the young prodigy. A blood-red notification window violently shattered the silence, grimly welcoming the strike team to the treacherous Whispering Shores. The ironclad guild members began losing their minds in pure terror as the indifferent system announced the sudden initiation of the Crystal Boar Slaughter event. A forced survival quest materialized. The squad had to defend the remaining crystal boars from monstrous executioners until the blood moon reached its zenith. Victory would unlock the path across the haunted waters and grant them access to the Abyss Core. However, the penalty for failure was absolute, merciless annihilation for every soul present. This catastrophic twist shattered their morale instantly. The C-rank deadweights descended into sheer panic, realizing they were drastically outmatched, begging their bald leader to abort the raid immediately. Desperation took over as they frantically slammed their fingers against their holographic interfaces, trying to activate the emergency escape protocol. Horror washed over their faces when the exit button grayed out. Grom mashed his system panel with trembling hands, only to accept the grim reality that they were trapped in a death game. The merciless counter flickered above them. The herd started at 130, but a horrifying screech echoed in the distance, and the number violently dropped to 128. His pride utterly shattered. Grom whipped his head toward the local S-rank hunter, practically begging the young prodigy for a miracle or any scrap of tactical insight. Jace maintained an icy composure, stating he was just as blind to the quest's origins. However, he casually dropped the bombshell that he possessed the full geographical layout of the Cursed Waters. A spark of desperate hope ignited in the bald veteran's eyes, and he practically pleaded for Jace to share the survival blueprint. Suddenly, the entire squad was falling over themselves, vowing absolute loyalty and support. A cold chuckle escaped Jace's lips at the delicious irony, considering these were the exact same fools who threatened his life mere minutes ago. Before throwing them a lifeline, the young master laid out one absolute, non-negotiable condition for his mercy. He would provide the navigational intel, but in return, every single veteran had to surrender their autonomy and obey his commands like absolute gospel until the nightmare was over. If they swore fealty to his strategy, he would guide them through the darkness. This ruthless ultimatum completely stripped the ironclad guild of its pride and officially dethroned Grom from his leadership position. Yet, pride meant nothing to dead men, especially as the system chimed with a deafening death knell, signaling another massacre in the herd. Grom knew they were walking corpses without the boy's guidance. The defeated leader swallowed his ego and agreed to the hostile takeover, pathetically demanding that Jace take full responsibility if the plan blew up in their faces. It was a completely cowardly condition, seeing as the young hero was literally handing them the only key to their salvation. Stripped of his leverage, Grom shut his mouth and listened intently as Jace began breaking down the terrifying topography of their death trap. The main character flawlessly illustrated the deadly labyrinth surrounding the water, detailing every hidden choke point and blind spot. He revealed that the colossal body of water at the dead center acted as a beating heart, pumping treacherous streams through the dark forest in a complex, inescapable web. The bald veteran was utterly paralyzed by the sheer depth of this hyper-accurate intel. To avoid suspicion, Jace casually lied, attributing his godlike knowledge to an extremely rare spatial mapping skill. Pure relief washed over Grom, realizing that with this living compass leading the charge, they might actually survive the night. Astonishingly, the insane geography perfectly mirrored the secret files Ren had entrusted to him, but the magnificent truth was far more legendary. The young prodigy was not using a skill at all, but rather wielding an omniscient, divine map bestowed upon him by his sponsor, the Celestial Viewer. The Sovereign Citadel had granted him a massive advantage. With this divine power, the heavy lifting was practically done for him. The objective was crystal clear: protect the Iron Tusk boars from complete annihilation. But first, they had to track the elusive beasts down. These creatures exclusively roamed the Crimson Marshes. That meant pinpointing exactly 8 massive breeding grounds scattered across the unforgiving terrain. It was a brutal race against time. They had to strike fast, moving like shadows before the savage executioners could wipe out a single territory. Kalen planned to herd the remaining beasts into one impenetrable fortress. That was just step one. And with the creature's population plummeting by the second, hesitation meant absolute failure. Every passing moment of inaction meant another senseless slaughter. Driven by sheer urgency, Vanguard leader Draven and his strike team blasted off like rockets to scout the perimeter. The squad leader wondered what their S-class powerhouse was plotting. Kalen simply smirked, stating that he was going to secure the Iron Tusk boars entirely on his own. Trusting the veteran's monstrous strength, Draven backed off. Finally, our main character had the absolute solitude he needed to analyze the Bloodwater Basin's topography. Rumor had it this exact sector concealed a secret quest with mind-blowing loot. And Kalen was hungry for that ultimate prize. The true massacre was looming. But before drawing his blade, two critical mysteries needed solving in the shadows. First, the exact trigger for the hidden quest. Second, the true faces of the butchers hunting down their targets. With multiple hostile species lurking around, threat assessment was crucial. Peering through the dense foliage, Kalen spotted a monstrous pack of saurian brutes rippling with unnatural muscle. A chill ran down his spine. The realization hit him like a freight train as he confirmed these cold-blooded reptiles were the exact executioners he had been hunting. Suddenly, his straightforward rescue mission transformed into an absolute nightmare. Individually, these reptiles barely registered as D-class threats. But swarming together? They were a catastrophic force of destruction. Deciding a frontal assault was suicide, Kalen prepared to slip away into the mist. But abruptly, two clueless rookies from his raid group stumbled directly into the danger zone, running their arrogant mouths. To make matters infinitely worse, these absolute fools were marching straight toward his hiding spot. They were practically dragging the Grim Reaper right to his doorstep. The loudest one was still barking cocky insults when his head was cleanly severed from his neck. A Saurian had lunged from the blind spot, delivering a flawless instant execution. A crimson fountain erupted from the stump. In the blink of an eye, the ruthless reptilian ambushers materialized from the swampy shadows. Blinded by grief and terror, the surviving hunter lost his absolute mind. He hurled himself at the monster, unleashing a desperate barrage of mana-infused punches. His blazing fury culminated in one final, explosive strike. But the reality was absolutely soul-crushing. The beast did not even flinch. The horrifying truth revealed itself. These saurians possessed a rare collective synergy skill when hunting in packs. That insignificant D-class weakling? Surrounded by its brethren, it underwent a vicious double-tier evolution, skyrocketing to a lethal B-class menace. Empowered by this terrifying boost, the beast effortlessly tore the hunter's arm completely out of its socket. The man collapsed, screaming in pure, devastating agony. Raising its jagged blade, the monster prepared to end his pathetic life. But a deafening clash rang out. Tark, the absolute sovereign of Aura, deflected the fatal strike. This legendary hobgoblin warrior had emerged from the void to completely flip the script. The arrogant class hunter from the Iron Fang Syndicate was utterly speechless. His miserable life had just been spared by a supposedly lowly summon. Stepping out from the brush, Kalen glared down at the pathetic survivor. He coldly reminded the idiot about the strict orders to hold their defensive perimeters. Trembling in fear, the burly hunter stammered out a weak excuse. He claimed the twisting labyrinth had confused his senses, leading him straight into this death trap. Disgusted, Kalen ordered him to crawl back to safety and stop the bleeding. Turning his chilling gaze to the slaughter, he commanded his loyal servant Tark to eradicate the reptilian swarm. The clock was ticking violently. Every second wasted on these grunts was a second lost, searching for the labyrinth's ultimate hidden treasure. Obeying instantly, Tark triggered his signature skill, Shadow Crow's Gale. He vanished into a blur, slicing through the enemy ranks faster than their reptilian eyes could process. The elite hobgoblin became a whirlwind of pure carnage. He violently disassembled the saurian brutes before their primitive brains even registered the pain. Kalen remained completely unbothered. He stood with his arms crossed, treating this brutal massacre like a front-row cinematic experience. The saurians boasted overwhelming numbers, but it meant absolutely nothing. In the face of true absolute power, they were just stepping stones. Suddenly, one of the desperate beasts experienced a rare spark of tactical genius. Deducing that the master was the true vulnerability, it bypassed the deadly summon. The beast launched itself at Kalen, aiming its venomous fangs for a clean, instantaneous decapitation. Without breaking a single sweat, Kalen triggered the Sovereign's Phantom Step. He immediately channeled the dark attributes harvested from Baron Vesper in the last apocalyptic wave. Infused with S-class physical might for 30 minutes, he effortlessly swatted the lunging beast away like a bothersome fly. Simultaneously, Tark landed his final devastating blow, wiping out the rest of the brain-dead reptiles. Kalen tossed a rare compliment to his fierce warrior, giving the imposing creature a quick pat of approval on the shoulder. The dynamic was definitely a bit awkward. Yet, right on cue, the terrifying warrior's cheeks flushed red, and a system notification confirmed their loyalty bond had surged by 10 massive points. Getting down to business, he cashed in the freshly harvested monocores for a mountain of easy gold. And because this was his first ever Saurian transaction, the Citadel of Phantoms gifted him a special milestone crate. Fortune was heavily smiling upon him today. He had struck the absolute jackpot. A sparkling celestial roulette voucher materialized in his palm, but discipline ruled his mind. He would only roll those fateful dice once this entire zone was conquered. Rook frantically taps his wrist. He desperately reminds Jin that their precious time limit is rapidly slipping away. Just as our hero racks his brain for a way to beat the relentless countdown, his goblin companion's eyes suddenly flash with wild, unchecked greed. It is the exact same ravenous look of a beast completely obsessed with pure gold. Right on cue, a chilling metallic chime rings out. The system projects a glowing holographic interface. It coldly demands a heavy toll of 5 gold coins for every extra 10 minutes of summoning time. Our favorite broadcaster curses under his breath. He cannot believe the sheer audacity of this absolute highway robbery. The ruthless interface never misses a chance to bleed his wallet completely dry. Yet, with his back against the wall, he knows he has to pay up. Suddenly, a deafening tremor shakes the very earth beneath his feet. An unstoppable stampede of crystal boars comes blindly tearing through the battlefield, heading right for him, cold sweat beads on Jin's forehead. How on earth is he supposed to corral this massive tide of terrified creatures? But Rook instantly leaps into heroic action. The little goblin intercepts the stampede, screaming out to the beasts in their native tongue. He commands their absolute focus with a fiery, impassioned speech. He praises his master's boundless mercy to the high heavens. They swarm our hero, nuzzling against him in an overwhelming display of absolute devotion. In the blink of an eye, Jin miraculously transforms into the ultimate beast tamer. He guides the monstrous herd with the effortless grace of a legendary shepherd. With the crisis averted, the duo presses deeper into the shadows. They mercilessly slaughter every single venom scale that dares to cross their path. But fate throws another vicious curveball. When Jin tries to cash in his newly acquired magic crystals, a blaring crimson warning completely overtakes his vision. The stronghold's treasury has been entirely bled dry. The ruthless system forcefully blocks him from trading even a single crystal until the merchant reserves replenish. It turns out our hero has already hit the absolute maximum capacity for subjugating the reptilian fiends. Who would have ever guessed that a grand fortress could literally run completely out of money? Faced with this brutal and inflexible command limit, Jin immediately abandons his hunt for the scaled beasts. Wasting precious time on unprofitable prey is a massive rookie mistake. Doing a quick head count of his rescued crystal boars, he tallies up 60 of them. Yet, the overarching dungeon prompt claims that exactly 70 have survived in total. The math paints a truly pathetic picture. The supposedly elite Iron Fang Guild only managed to salvage a measly 10 beasts. Without warning, the once docile boars absolutely lose their minds. The harmless creatures surge forward as one unstoppable, unified force. They violently herd every single surviving challenger straight toward the dark heart of the underground lake. A booming voice shakes the cavern walls. The ruthless hunters have finally retreated into the shadows. The true nightmare of the night phase has officially begun. Sarcastic praise flashes across their screens, congratulating the survivors for keeping their fragile prey alive against all odds. But hitting that magic number of 70 triggers something absolutely massive. A legendary hidden achievement unlocks right before their very eyes. Meanwhile, the Iron Fang forces are suffering a complete mental collapse. They scream at the relentless abyss, begging to escape this living hell. Just when they think they have survived the worst, a chilling new prompt announces that the agonizing trial of purification is commencing. A catastrophic tsunami of glowing, volatile energy erupts from the lake, threatening to obliterate everything in its path. Death seems utterly unavoidable. But in a spectacular twist of fate, the rescued boars unleash a fierce aura, throwing their bodies forward to form a living shield. Jin and Rook stand completely frozen in place. Their jaws absolutely drop at this mind-blowing display of fierce loyalty. The glowing text confirms the impossible. The fragile creatures they defended are now risking their own lives to repay the ultimate debt. Jin is utterly stunned by the immense hidden power lurking within these lowly beasts. The true genius behind the escort mission suddenly clicks into crystal clear focus. A brilliant tactical realization hits him. Does stacking a massive army of these creatures guarantee absolute invincibility? He quickly surveys the chaotic battlefield to test his theory. The rival challengers are barely clinging to life, protected by a pitiful handful of beasts at best. Even Drax, the arrogant commander of the Iron Fangs, is dropping fast to his bloodied knees. His solitary guardian boar is coughing up blood, teetering on the very edge of death. The rest of his guild is practically wiped out, making Jin genuinely wince at their critical state. Our hero's mind races at light speed to formulate a miracle rescue plan. In that exact second, the highest tier of system alerts shatters the tension. The ultimate secret quest he has been hunting for is finally brought out into the blinding light. His objective is completely crystal clear. He must track down the absolute mastermind behind this disastrous trial and crush them into dust. The stakes have never been higher. If he can obliterate the dungeon boss pulling the strings, the agonizing 10-minute countdown will shatter instantly. Jin does not waste a single heartbeat. He centers his breathing and equips his legendary mystic glasses. His signature clairvoyant gaze activates with a blinding flash. He locks onto an overwhelmingly malicious aura, hiding precisely at the targeted coordinates. Zooming in on the terrifying energy signature, his blood instantly runs cold. It is an apex predator, the infamous named boss known only as Malachor, a terrifyingly intelligent beast. Armed with devastating abilities like Tidal Cataclysm and Abyssal Storm, a cold sweat breaks out on Kalen's forehead. Named monsters are legendary entities. They possess unique powers that defy all logic. Still, he forces his racing heart to steady. A hidden quest was never meant to be a walk in the park. Brix's eyes light up with battle lust, and he readies a reckless charge into the roaring waves. But Kalen immediately holds him back. He orders his companion to stand down and watch from the sidelines. Without any natural water resistance, diving into the sunken abyss is pure suicide. The battlefield itself would tear Brix apart. With no other choice, Kalen opens his beast taming system. He needs to hire a brand new mercenary for this impossible fight. Scrolling through the Sovereign's summoning bazaar, his eyes lock onto a massive ogre berserker. It is the perfect choice, boasting a high natural resistance to water magic. But a sudden wave of dread hits him. Unlike his fully geared companions, this new ogre is completely bare-handed. Against a terrifying named monster like Thalakor, it would be slaughtered in seconds. Knowing he desperately needs a massive stat boost, Kalen makes a risky gamble. He pulls out his ultimate lottery ticket, fully aware of its painfully low drop rates. He prays to the heavens for a miracle artifact, something that can help his new summon survive Thalakor's wrath. The ticket dissolves into a blinding golden flash. A brilliant light erupts through the chaotic storm. Kalen's jaw drops in utter shock. A massive wave of adrenaline rushes through his veins. He actually pulled an S-rank artifact, but that soaring hype crashes instantly. He stares blankly at the item, realizing it looks absolutely useless for a physical brawler. There is no time to complain, though. The violent whirlpools grow deadlier by the second. Left with zero alternatives, he summons the hulking giant and equips the new gear. But the very second the item touches the beast, the towering ogre crashes hard into the dirt. In that exact moment, chaos erupts elsewhere. A blood-curdling scream echoes from the raging waters. One of the Ironcrest guild members is drowning. Kalen sprints toward the danger without a second thought. Bitter frustration twists his face. He grinds his teeth together, accepting the grim reality that he has to fight this war completely alone. Worse yet, his Sovereign's Phantom Resonance will expire in exactly 12 minutes. After that, he turns back into a pathetic E-rank weakling. Despite the looming doom, he throws himself into the lethal currents to save the dying man. His muscles scream in agony, pushed to their absolute limits even with his boosted stats. His fingers begin to slip. His vision blurs as the freezing waves threaten to rip him away from the safety log. Suddenly, the roaring rapids calm down. Kalen blinks in pure disbelief. The giant beast is standing tall in the crushing waves, proudly wearing a comical wizard's pointed hat. With the majestic voice of a noble knight, the monster turns and asks if his master is injured. It delivers a flawless, courtly bow to Kalen. Introducing itself as his eternal and humble servant, it is a display of sheer elegance that defies every known law of monster biology. Kalen's mind completely short-circuits. He simply cannot process the absurdity unfolding before his eyes. All he did was equip that bizarre S-rank drop, the Archmage Zulthar's legendary hat. The relic was famous for drastically boosting magical intelligence, a treasure capable of turning a complete fool into an unparalleled scholar. But never in his wildest dreams did he imagine this. Pushing a mindless beast's intellect to the absolute maximum had actually rewritten its entire personality. Utterly dumbfounded, Kalen stammers out a question to his massive servant. He demands to know how a brainless brute is suddenly speaking like a royal scholar. The beast puffs out its massive chest with bursting pride. It declares that the master's divine gift has awakened its soul, evolving it into a supreme, enlightened species. After dropping that jaw-dropping revelation, the mountain of muscle drops into a deeply respectful kneel. It looks Kalen straight in the eye, eagerly waiting for its very first order. Kalen pauses, needing to test a crazy theory before making a move. The giant beast nods eagerly, ready to answer anything. He asks the golden question. Can this massive brawler actually cast spells now? The monster beams with absolute confidence and roars a yes. It casually explains how it just enchanted its massive wooden club with elemental mana. A triumphant smirk spreads across Kalen's face. The tides of battle have officially turned in his favor. Riding this wave of absolute hype, he orders his new powerhouse to smash straight through the raging storm. Kalen falls in right behind his living shield. Without a second of hesitation, the wizard hat-wearing brute flexes its magic-infused muscles, bulldozing right through the deadly torrents. In a brilliant tactical move, Kalen officially bestows the name Gromak upon his loyal servant. He declares his total trust in the beast. Hearing this sacred title, the giant's cheeks flush, and thick tears of joy stream down its terrifying face. Overwhelmed by sheer gratitude and blazing resolve, Gromak roars to the heavens, vowing to crush any enemy and gladly sacrifice his own life to repay his master's ultimate grace. The enlightened giant bursts through the boiling fog like a magical juggernaut. With his loyal vanguard leading the charge, Kalen knows victory is finally within reach. Deep within the treacherous waters, the fearsome Thalakor feels a sudden chill of dread. The legendary beast realizes the impossible has happened. Someone has completely overpowered his unstoppable magic. The enemy caster knew this invader was no ordinary spellweaver. Yet, he remained fiercely arrogant, certain that his ultimate arcane shield was entirely unbreakable. At that exact moment, Groog slammed right into the invisible wall, his massive frame brought to a dead halt. The brute immediately reported the obstacle to Kale. His master strategy was brutally simple. Just keep smashing the exact same spot until the magical defenses crumble into dust. Shockingly, the towering ogre began rambling about complex magical theory, calculating exactly why this multi-layered formula was mathematically invincible. Kale quickly cut him off. He ordered his servant to drop the overthinking and just crush the barrier with pure, unadulterated brute force. The command defied all magical logic, but the loyal servant obeyed without question. He started battering the barrier relentlessly, winding up and swinging like a heavy hitter in the bottom of the 9th inning. Deep inside, Vexus felt a sudden spike of dread as he watched his impenetrable magic begin to crack. Despite the weakening shield, the reptilian mage forced a twisted smile. There was absolutely no way a mindless beast could survive his incoming devastating attack. In his arrogant mind, possessing overwhelming physical strength while mastering high-tier magic was an absolute impossibility in this world. But right in the middle of his villainous monologue, the invincible barrier shattered into a million glowing pieces. The cold-blooded Vexus stood completely paralyzed in shock. His mind raced in absolute denial. Only a monster that possessed the intellect of a grand sorcerer could pull this off, a paradox that defied all known laws of reality. Staring at the massive brute rocking a wizard's hat, the scaled mage completely lost his grip on sanity. His absolute defense had just been forcefully bypassed. Panic set in as he wondered if this creature was actually a legendary monster shaman. When Kale casually called out the lizard's name, the scaled villain stayed completely silent. He pushed his fear aside, channeling every last ounce of his magical energy into obliterating the intruders standing before him. He desperately calculated that breaking the shield must have completely drained the beast's mana, giving him the perfect opening to slaughter a heavily weakened opponent. Aura flared violently as the reptile prepared an instant kill spell. Seeing the danger, Kale immediately ordered Groog to launch a long-range magic attack to shatter the enemy's casting. The master fully expected a blazing fireball or a bolt of lightning, followed by a devastating forward charge. Instead, the towering brute just casually picked up a massive tree trunk and hurled it straight at Vexus. The arrogant reptile did not even realize it was a physical projectile. He laughed triumphantly, declaring that his magical defenses would absorb any spell and that their pathetic counterattack was completely useless. But the moment 2 tons of solid timber slammed into his face, the lizard's massive ego shattered just like his pathetic shield. He was instantly knocked out cold, crumbling to the floor in ultimate defeat. Kale turned to his giant companion, dryly noting that his so-called magic spell looked an awful lot like just chucking a piece of wood. Groog hastily bowed his head in apology, nervously confessing that he actually had not memorized any real spell incantations yet. The scene suddenly shifts back to the luxurious headquarters of the Apex Syndicate. Inside the boardroom, executives aggressively pressured their boss to recruit Kale, the newly awakened S-rank anomaly, before a rival faction could lock him down. But the arrogant leader just waved off their concerns. He scoffed at the idea of chasing down one measly S-rank awakened, boasting that his guild already possessed a massive army of elite fighters. Deep within the dungeon's abyss, the battle was officially over. Groog carefully extracted the glowing abyssal core from the defeated boss and respectfully presented it to Kale. Kale commended the towering giant for a job well done. But the loyal servant quickly bowed, insisting that this absolute victory was entirely due to his master's flawless command. After finishing their humble exchange of praises, Kale directly accessed the stronghold system and traded the legendary boss drop for an incredible bounty. The system calculated his final payout. His mind-blowing rewards included a highly coveted territorial expansion permit. He also scored another premium summoning voucher, a literal ticket to absolute power, and a modest pile of gold coins, slightly taxed by the stronghold's depleted treasury. Best of all, Kale could now summon the defeated lizard mage as an elite unit for his future horde sieges. Stashing his hard-earned loot into his inventory, he decided to review his massive gains later and finally began the long trek back to the surface. Upon exiting the chaotic battleground, he found only one survivor fully awake. It was the azure-haired huntress from the Crimson Vanguard. Her eyes widened in absolute relief as she asked if he had successfully rescued the team. She bowed her head deeply, pouring out endless gratitude for his heroic intervention. Kyle quickly checked on the status of the remaining squad members. She confirmed they had narrowly survived death's door and were already receiving advanced healing. Suddenly, Jax, the towering squad leader, approached and requested a private word with Kyle. The massive brute practically stomped toward him, looking like he was about to throw a devastating right hook. But in a totally unexpected twist, the giant crashed down heavily onto his knees. He bowed his head to the dirt, desperately apologizing for his arrogant behavior at the dungeon entrance, and thanked Kale for pulling his entire team from the jaws of hell. Kale was completely taken aback. He honestly never expected this hot-headed brawler to possess an ounce of actual humility. Breaking the tense silence, Kale extended a firm hand. He told the burly leader to get up off the ground and focus his energy on protecting the comrades who still heavily relied on him. The two warriors locked hands in mutual respect. Tears of pure gratitude welled up in Jax's eyes, and he swore a blood oath to repay this monumental life debt in the future. Right on cue, a blue holographic window flashed before their eyes. The trial of awakening had been officially conquered. Now, the system presented a deadly choice: retreat to safety, or plunge straight into the terrifying lower depths. Anyone still knocked out was instantly teleported back to the safe zone, but the conscious survivors held their fate in their own hands. When Jax heard that Kale was fully prepared to dive even deeper into the abyss, he desperately pleaded with him to fall back. He promised that the Crimson Vanguard would supply him with top-tier gear and elite reinforcements for a future raid. However, Kale simply smirked and revealed his terrifying shadow army. With a commanding presence, he assured the shocked guild leader that his ultimate strike force was already assembled and ready for war. Jax is completely paralyzed by fear, but he finally grasps the sheer weight of Kale's determination, biting back his desperate pleas to retreat. The retreating party bows in deep gratitude before fleeing for their lives, leaving our lone hero behind to shatter the impossible and clear the abyss, a legendary feat no one in history has ever pulled off. Because he managed to absolutely crush the secret objective, the glowing system interface chimes in, promising Kale an exclusive, god-tier reward right on top of his standard loot drop. Meanwhile, the scene cuts over to Guildmaster Marcus Vance, who is currently fighting off aggressive pitches to recruit the newly discovered S-rank powerhouse. His vice master, Silas Thorne, alongside his sister, desperately argues why their elite faction absolutely needs to secure this walking natural disaster. But the stubborn leader just brushes them off, bitterly complaining that their own organization is already drowning in endless headaches and tight budgets. Furthermore, since this alleged monster is still officially registered as a lowly B rank on paper, Marcus refuses to see the hype as anything more than a massive waste of time. Suddenly, a frantic emergency alert shatters the room's tension. A Crimson Tier anomaly has just spawned, warning that a catastrophic dungeon break is imminent. Marcus feels his stomach drop when he reads the coordinates. It is the Echoing Labyrinth, the exact same death trap Kale just entered. Realizing the sheer danger, the leader immediately mobilizes his forces. A few hours later, Marcus and his elite squad touch down at the chaotic lockdown zone, demanding a full tactical report. The perimeter defense commanders are practically sweating bullets as they explain that the gate has horrifically mutated into a deadly Red-class disaster. They quickly add that all nearby civilians have been safely evacuated, but they will desperately need the Obsidian Vanguard's overwhelming firepower to stop the impending bloodbath. Silas barks out a frantic question about the stranded hunters trapped on the other side, to which a grim-faced government agent replies that while 6 members barely escaped with their lives, one absolute madman charged straight into the darkest depths. Right at that moment, 2 more heavyweights step onto the battlefield. Arthur from the Zenith Syndicate, and Ren, the lethal master of the Crimson Blades. The atmosphere crackles with intense curiosity. This is completely unprecedented, a single, solitary hunter pushing into the most lethal, uncharted core of this untamable zone. The rival guild masters are utterly baffled, racking their brains to figure out which legendary fighter could pull off such a terrifying feat, until the suit-clad agent drops a bombshell revelation that sends shockwaves through the crowd. The lone survivor is Kale,